Welcome to the Locked On Heat 2006 NBA Finals Rewatch. On today's show, we revisit Miami's thrilling comeback in Game 3 to stay alive in the finals. We'll look at the importance of Shaquille O'Neal and answer the all-important question, is Dwyane Wade a legend yet? All of that and more coming up on today's Locked On Heat.
Terry puts it up, won't go, rebound Wade. The Miami Heat, they've done it. They win their first championship in franchise history.
Congratulations, Miami Heat. 2006 NBA champions.
But it was our time. I really believe that it was our time.
It's one of the best feelings I ever had in my life. So I'm going to live it up. So we deserve it.
All right, welcome to our third installment of the Locked On Heat 2006 NBA Finals Rewatch. Thank you so much for subscribing on YouTube, Odyssey, or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Wes Goldberg here with David Ramil. Thank you for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. We're going back to the 2006 finals and diving into each game, asking the biggest questions, discussing the best performances, and tracing how Dwyane Wade led the Heat to their first ever championship. Games 1 and 2 are already up on YouTube and in your podcast feeds. And now it is time for Game 3, aka Miami's first win in the series. David, why don't you set the stage for us?
Absolutely. Quote unquote, the Heat are a different team at home. Those were the words from ABC announcer Mike Breen at the start of Game 3 of the finals. To the first two games in Dallas, Miami was outcoached, out-hustled, and outplayed, and halfway to elimination. If they had any chance of pulling off an upset versus the Mavericks, they would have to be a very different team indeed. The first quarter started off promisingly with Dwyane Wade and Shaquille O'Neal both aggressive early. O'Neal, after scoring an all-time playoff low of 5 points in the previous game, had 8 in the first period alone. But he also had 4 rebounds and 3 assists, setting a tone early, showing off that versatility to give Miami an edge that they had lacked so far through 2 games. But through the first half, it was Wade who was clearly dominant. 21 points, 14 trips to the line, earning each and every one, slashing and unstoppable, fearlessly attacking whatever obstacle or Mavs player was in the way, with the American Airlines Arena crowd, 20,000 strong, dressed in white, cheering them on. Miami cruised to a double-digit lead. But Heat fans of today will be happy to know that their old nemesis, the third quarter, as it's so lovingly referred to, was going strong in 2006 too. O'Neal looked tired, slow, and old again. Wade rolled his ankle and limped his way through the period, and the Mavs outscored Miami by 18 in the third alone, turning a double-digit deficit into a double-digit lead. The crowd stunned into silence as Josh Howard, the one-time All-Star, and Dirk Nowitzki combined for 21 points, outscoring the entire Heat team. A Wade three-pointer cut the lead to 6 at the start of the fourth quarter, but 6 minutes later, a Jason Terry jumper had built the lead back up to 13. But then Miami got its miracle. Shrugging off injury, Wade hit a jumper, then another, then back to the line for 2. Then he did it all over again. 6 made field goals, 15 points in the quarter, leading the most unlikely of comebacks as Miami regained the lead. They'd need a few other minor miracles along the way to seal the deal, with Dirk Nowitzki missing a free throw, turning the ball over as well. Seconds left in the game, and Udonis Haslem, after having missed his first 4 free throws, draining his last 2 despite a shoulder injury. And ultimately, Wade hitting a free throw to hit his 42nd point of a 2-point win to give Miami a chance and to begin etching his name into the sacred stones of NBA history.
We're going to get into all of that stuff about the legend-making status of this game later on in the show, but I texted you after I got done watching it, and I said, David, I need a drink, because that was, obviously I knew the outcome of the game.
But you still get caught up in it. You still get caught up in everyone. Every
still
play.
So stressful there. Coming back from 13 points down in that fourth quarter, if they lose that game, it's over, right?
Oh, without a
That's
doubt.
not one of the what ifs we're going to explore, but we might as well. If they lose that game, series is over. It's done. And who knows what happens, right? Miami, like Shaquille O'Neal, clearly at the tail end of his prime, if we can even call it that. And you know, Dwyane Wade becomes a champion in 2006, but if they lose that game, then like, do they break it up afterwards? What happens is if Dwyane Wade is no longer a champion, does LeBron want to come play with him in 2010? Like, there's all these, there's this huge ripple effect, and that's how important it was for Dwyane Wade to score those 15 points in the fourth quarter. And this is that was sort of the first sign of D Wade being like, you know what, I'm putting the team on my back. He beat the better team. He beat the better team.
Yeah. Single-handedly. Getting to the line, like I said, just impressively too. Like I you know, often the conversation about the finals, and we'll see how the next 3 games pan out. But when it comes to Dwyane and the multiple trips to the line, so many Mavericks fans complaining that the whistle was given to him, that he didn't earn those trips. He was absolutely earning each and every one of those trips to the line. Like, he was just much more aggressive, attacking whoever was in front of him. And you could see that he was drawing that contact. At no point in time did I say, oh, that was a too friendly whistle. I think he earned a lot of those trips. There were a couple of trips that he didn't get calls. I think overall, I think the officiating was very fair. But yes, I hadn't even considered like down the road, like if 2006 doesn't happen, there's no championship culture to appeal to Chris Bosh and LeBron James. There's no chip on Dwyane's shoulder as he tells them, yeah, I know what it takes to get to this point of winning a title. You should come with me to Miami so we could all do it together. Like this, I mean, they had just broken up the team, so I don't even know what would have been next. Like, you just pulled off the biggest trade in NBA history up to that point. You can't possibly just make another change for change's sake, and yet it seems likely that something would have happened. Do you trade Shaq after 2 failed runs at the playoffs? I mean, it seems like a lot of little steps, a lot of big what-if questions that would have been answered.
Would you have been okay basically tanking 2 years, preparing for the run at LeBron and Chris Bosh, had you not thought that you could actually go get those guys? Yeah. Like, what does it look like in 2008 and 2009 if it's different? I don't know. I have no idea. It's crazy. And it is a great what if to sort of explore and think about. And it puts Dwyane Wade's accomplishment in this game into such great context. This was not, I firmly believe this. The Heat were not supposed to win that game. That was not a game that the Heat should have won. And Dwyane Wade said, I don't care. I'm winning it anyway. And like, it just wasn't supposed to happen. But that's what the great ones do, right? They say, I don't care what's supposed to happen. I'm going to make it happen. And that's what D Wade did. Let's just get to our takeaways to the game. We'll get to our trivia here in a minute. But my takeaway from the game is that this was the first time where Shaq and D Wade finally looked like that power couple that they were supposed to be, and that they were, for most of their time in Miami together. But in the first 2 games of the final, Shaq just didn't look the part. And you mentioned how many points he scored in the first quarter. Was it 8 in the first quarter? More than he had scored in all of game 2, which was his playoff low. He came out. He looked aggressive. He was making those jumpers. He was getting to his spots below the rim and all these things. And there was this great story told on the broadcast about how him and D Wade came in the night before on Miami's day off and got in some work. And I'm not really sure the details of the work. Obviously, it's not what they talked about. But the fact that they said, hey, you know what? The 2 of us need to come together and figure this out, or else we're sunk in this series. And they came back and they did it, right? And that was another sign of how just great Shaq was. He was so far beyond his prime, but he was able to me, I thought he set the tone early in the game, David. I think that the Heat, obviously the Heat don't win that game if not for Dwyane Wade's second half, but they don't win that game without Shaq setting the tone in the first quarter either.
No, he did things that we hadn't seen for the first 2 games. Like, the passes were extra crisp. The rebounding, like he was already a step slow, not able to really jump up multiple times. There was no second effort when it came to rebounding by and large, but we saw glimpses of that in game 3. He dove to the floor not once, but twice. He actually poked the ball free from Jason Terry out on the perimeter to initiate a fast break. He didn't finish it, but he kicked it up to a wide open Jason.
He took a couple dribbles, though. He did a couple dribbles, fumbled a couple dribbles around, and then got it to Jason Williams.
This wasn't him back in the Orlando Magic when he could actually lead a fast break, but he actually did poke the ball free, just doing little things that we hadn't seen. He wasn't just a big, slow, plodding body out there. He was actually able to contribute in multiple ways. And he did set the tone early on, but he also finished with 4 points in the fourth quarter, too, to help chip in. It was a multiple effort from lots of different players. A lot of different role players stepped up at various times throughout the game. Wade clearly leading the charge as he's able to do. But, Shaq, everybody else stepping up as well. So that was my big takeaway. It was just a great group win.
Shaq hit a couple of free throws with under 2 minutes left. Those were really big free throws, right? And he would been missing basically every free throw he took. Could you imagine if a player of Shaq's stature today shot 40% from the free throw line in the playoffs? He would be annihilated. You know who would annihilate him? Shaquille O'Neal and Charles Barkley on the TNT broadcast. They would just be like, what's this guy doing? Shaq was doing it. Let's end this segment on a little bit of trivia before we get into our categories. Here's a question, David. The 2006 finals featured multiple future Hall of Famers. Who are the top 5 career points leaders in this series?
Okay, top 5. Shaq, Wade.
This is in order.
Oh,
I'm asking you in order.
In order?
Yeah.
Nowitzki.
Who do you think is Dirk is number 1? Yep.
Dirk's number,
and then Shaq
2,
and Wade, like you said.
Shaq, Wade. Third most.
Fourth most.
Fourth most. Gary Payton.
Yeah.
Fifth most. Another Hall of Famer on the roster. Oh no.
That might have been it for Hall of Famers, but
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you threw me off there. I'm trying to think. What was the fifth most? Jerry Stackhouse, fifth.
no, he's sixth.
Ah,
I'll give you one more guess.
Antoine Walker. He was a proficient scorer.
He was seventh. It was actually Jason Terry at number 5. It's all those
That makes
three-pointers.
sense. He did play a long career. He did have a long career.
He played a long time. 18,881 points for Jason Terry. Stackhouse at 16,409. So more than 2,000 fewer points. Antoine Walker, 15,647. Alonzo Mourning clocking in at number 8, 14,311, which is actually impressive considering that he was never really a scorer and how many years that he missed with the kidney thing. All right, let's get into our categories here next. This is our 2006 NBA Finals rewatch here on Locked On Heat. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all of your betting needs. Find all of your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news of every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports wagering information. From live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts, they have you covered. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today. BetOnline, where the game starts. Back here with Locked On Heat. It is our 2006 NBA Finals rewatch. Games 1 and 2 are already up in your favorite podcast feed and on YouTube, so go ahead and check those out. Of course, you can find these games on NBA League Pass if you're a subscriber to that, or I'm sure there's somewhere on YouTube as well. I think actually some people have linked to them in the comments of our YouTube page, and I'm sure you can find it there. So follow along with us. Game 4 comes out next week, but we're talking Game 3 here. Let's get into our categories, David, and this one we'll start with the turning point of the game. What do you have?
For me, it was actually not Dwyane and his consistent greatness. It was actually James Posey hitting a three-pointer to cut the lead to 7. At that point, obviously a double-digit lead for the Mavericks, and they needed every other point that they'd get from that point forward. But Posey, with a shot clock expiring out from the corner, hitting a three-pointer, again, cutting the lead to 7, and then later on, a Wade layup cutting that to 5-point lead. So it was the beginnings of that comeback for me that really kind of spurred everything else. And again, you saw different role players have key moments throughout the course of the game, but I think that was the biggest one from Posey.
I actually also have another role player, kind of the central figure of my turning point. It's Udonis Haslem.
The free throws?
The free throws at the end there, but what led to the free throws? The Heat down 93-92 with 1 minute and 5 seconds to go. UD intercepts Jason Terry's pass to Dirk. Jason Terry trying to get that pass to Dirk right around the foul line where Dirk was so effective from, and Haslem just having the cojones, David, to try to intercept a pass with 1 minute to go to Dirk. If he doesn't make that, Dirk's got a wide open shot at the free throw line. That's money 100% of the time for Dirk, right? And so Haslem to go for that steal and then get it with the injured shoulder and everything, gets fouled, makes those 2 free throws, and the Heat take a 94-93 lead. They did not trail again. To me, that was the turning point. I understand why you went with Posey. I almost made that my turning point too. And a couple other things earlier in the fourth quarter you could have mentioned, but it was such a close game down the stretch that I really don't think the turning point happened until about a minute left.
Yeah, it almost felt like there really wasn't any one turning point either. Like, I mean, it was just kind of little things here and there. Like, so much could have broken in Dallas's favor. Like Dirk Nowitzki, as you mentioned, almost a sure shot from the free throw line, misses a free throw, then turns the ball over at the end. Like, just little catastrophic steps that nobody would have foreseen. And yet that's how it all played out in order for Miami to be able to seal the win. Even Dwyane Wade missing a free throw at the end there. Like, they hung on to that win, but just barely. So, yeah, you're right. Udonis, key moments. I love the fact that he had like a bandage back there for an injured shoulder. I'm not exactly sure how that's helping the injury as far as like a muscle strain or anything like that, but him kind of just grimacing his way through it. The long rows at that point, braids, I guess. Either way, fantastic. That classic Udonis Haslem.
He never smiles. Ever.
I've seen
just
him.
a grimace all the time.
I've seen a smile. Come on.
Not back then. Today, he's a little bit more chill. He's got a lot accomplished, a lot on the resume. Not back then. He wasn't smiling. All right, let's move on to our flash bulb moment. And here it is, David. I'm just going to lay it out because I think you have the same thing as I do. D-Wade checks in with just under 7 minutes to go in this game. The Heat are down 87-76. Here's what happens next. He banks in a 15-footer over Dirk Nowitzki.
Yeah.
A minute later, he has a reverse layup with an and one.
Yep.
Then he comes off of a Shaq screen, hits a foul line jumper.
Yep.
Then he scores again on a baseline drive. It was an unbelievable finish too, through traffic. Finishes again baseline 18-footer. Then that's really the end of the major scoring to get the Heat back into the game. Dirk Nowitzki at the line misses one free throw. Misses the second one, rebounds Dirk's miss, just skies over everybody else on the floor, and then gets fouled, hits a free throw, the one that you were talking about. And then David, the real flashbulb moment. Game is the Heat are up. The Mavericks have to score, just seconds left on the shot clock. Dirk Nowitzki inbounding the ball. Udonis Haslem guarding Dirk on the baseline there, out of bounds. Dirk trying to throw a lob up to Josh Howard, and Dwyane Wade flies over Josh Howard, knocks away the potential game-tying lob at the buzzer. We have the sound of it right here.
Get a guy going to a corner or to the basket. It's the lob, knocked away, and the Heat survive. And by Dwyane Wade. There you go. A stirring fourth quarter comeback. And the Miami Heat right back in the NBA Finals.
Screenshots only here on YouTube for copyright purposes. But that was the audio. What a play, David. That was the flashbulb moment.
That was the flashbulb moment, that final defensive presence from him. I mean,
the whole series was, but also that.
Can you have a 6-minute stretch that's a flashbulb moment? I guess that kind of fits it. I just, the fact that in his third year, he was taking over the game, and we'd seen this before. And look, I mean, I don't think the comparisons are an even one either, but we've seen we've seen Tyler Herro do this recently for fans that maybe have forgotten Wade in his prime, but just like being able to dominate this way and being able to take over games. Like I made this point before on the show. To me, a superstar is somebody who can absolutely change the outcome of a game single-handedly, and he does it on offense and defense. And that's the thing that stands out, is that he was making those plays, breaking up passes, grabbing rebounds, making the smart play time and time again, willing to take that shot as the clock expired on multiple occasions and hitting big shot after big shot. You forget that Dwyane was able to hit those jumpers once upon a time, and especially when the lights were brightest. And there he was, absolutely in his prime, hitting the most unlikely of shots to lead the most unlikely of comebacks. It was absolutely beautiful.
And making the defensive plays too, and it was just, I was actually just rewatching. I was on NBA Reddit this morning, just kind of scanning, and somebody had posted a few years later, the D-Wade, "This is my house" against the Bulls in double overtime, that game in that series. And Tony Fiorentino, who's doing color commentary at that time, saying this is usually when Dwyane Wade steps up with a really big defensive play, and then 2 seconds later he steals the ball and hits that floater to win the game. And that's the reason why Tony Fiorentino said that, was because of moments like this one where he makes that huge deflection on the lob, and just the athleticism that it took to do that. I mean, that is, Josh Howard has what, 4 inches on Dwyane Wade, 3 or 4 inches on Dwyane Wade, and you got a nice tall inbounder in Dirk Nowitzki, who's 7 feet tall, throwing that lob, and for Dwyane Wade to just put his body in between. Limping the entire game. Earlier in the game, Shaq almost killed Dwyane Wade. He almost broke Dwyane Wade's leg by falling into him.
That was to re-aggravate the injury. That was to re-aggravate it. Like, he had been hurt before. He was limping for most of the second half, and then Shaq rolled into it, as you said, after like a rebound or a miss of some kind. And and he came crumpling down. Dwyane grabbing his leg at just an obvious pain, and still somehow able to just carry the team from that point forward.
Yeah, that was my other what if, is if Shaq did not lose the 35 pounds that Pat Riley told him to, or if he's just like a little bit more, like an inch over closer to Dwyane Wade, does Dwyane Wade's career just end right there, and that's it? Like, it's just it's horrible to think about. We don't have to think about it because they came back from 13 points down in the fourth quarter and won that game. But
all good vibes, buddy.
All good vibes. All good vibes. All right. We've got a few more categories to get to, including the center belt, the role player of the game, and some new ones here on our Locked On Heat 2006 NBA Finals Rewatch. The Locked On Heat 2006 NBA Finals Rewatch. Find us at Twitter, at Locked On Heat, Instagram, at Locked On Heat. Follow the show on YouTube and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Smash that button right now. Why don't you? We have Game 4 coming out next week. We also have some exclusive interviews that you're not going to want to miss. So make sure that you're subscribed to follow along. Let's finish up these categories, David. Let's get right into the center belt. So after game 2, it was clearly going to Alonzo Mourning. He played 20 really effective minutes in game 2. Shaq scored just 5 points in that game, his worst playoff performance of his career. I think it's safe to say that Shaq grabbed the belt back.
Yeah. Setting the tone early, contributing late, with the exception of the potential injury to Dwyane there, notwithstanding. Like, he was just, again, good to see him being, if not exactly dominant, impactful, and positively so. So this was by far his best game of the series. And yes, clearly the best center out on the floor. Even better than Eric Dampier, which is saying something.
Yeah, he finally outplayed Eric Dampier. It's a good point. You know, Eric Dampier had been dominating this entire series. Shaq just finally looked like Shaquille O'Neal.
Yep.
You know, it's such a stark contrast versus what he looked like in games 1 and 2 versus what he looked like in game 3. And we know, obviously, for the rest of the series, it kind of goes back and forth with him and Zoe and who the best center is. But in game 3, it was clearly Shaquille O'Neal, and they needed that. They really did need that for them to win this game and ultimately, obviously, win this series. Our next category is the role player of the game. I'm really curious to see who you have here.
To me, it was Antoine Walker. I think he just it felt. Yeah, I had Antoine there as the role player of the game. I liked his minutes. I thought he did things like he shot poorly overall, 6 of 17. We finished with 12 points, but his minutes felt impactful in a way that Jason Williams or even James Posey did not. I was gonna go with Pose, who wasn't productive necessarily, but he was doing all the little things, drawing charges, hitting that big 3-pointer, just defending Dirk Nowitzki well. But I liked Antoine's overall game in game 3. I thought he was just a more impactful role player. Who did you have as the role player of the game?
I won't take the disrespect. I can't believe you just didn't give it to Udonis Haslem. He earned it, man. Udonis Haslem, man, was the role player of the game. The steal that we just talked about, hitting those big free throws, grimacing nonstop, letting the Dallas Mavericks know that he was serious. It wasn't a crazy stat line. 8 points, 11 rebounds, but he did have 3 steals in the game, which is crazy. Yeah. He was a team high plus 12. Yeah. I'm giving it to Haslem in his 34 minutes. His best game of the series so far.
I actually wrote in my notes Udonis Haslem. I wish I could show it and prove to everybody. I actually had Udonis, but I just
no one believes you
right now.
No one believes you. Antoine Walker's a good pick. He deserves a shout out in general for how he's played this entire series through 3 games. Yeah. All right, I'm excited for this one. We're calling it, I think you and I debated the name. We wanted to find a name for a category for the player most ahead of his time. So we're naming it, I think, the Brian Wilson Award for now. For those of you who don't know who Brian Wilson is,
shame on you.
Sorry, but you should. The Beach Boys, Brian Wilson. He was ahead of his time. We debated, like, do we call it the Pet Sounds Award, the Wall of Sound Award, something like that? You threw at me. Yeah. Because that was like his music theory that was just so ahead of his time on Pet Sounds. So
I still think, and I think you should do it too. I think it was the build a fucking wall of sound, combining Stan Van Gundy with Brian Wilson on the floor. I think that's the perfect combination, tying everything together for 2005 to 06. But you know what?
I like
going with the Brian Wilson one. Yeah.
SVG was sort of ahead of his time in Orlando. The whole idea of using Dwight Howard in the middle to spray out to shooters instead of from 3-point range, not from 15 feet like we're seeing in these finals. A little whatever. I think the obvious one is Dirk Nowitzki. I think that's fair, right? He is probably the player most ahead of his time, but I will say this: he only took a pair of 3-pointers in this game, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, he took 7. He only made 2 of them, but he took 7. So yeah. That's
more than he had at any other point in this series, just because he was doing most of his damage from the mid-range. Like, it wasn't a great. He finished with 30 points, which I'll be honest with you, did not feel like 30 points. If you can say that a 30-point outing is quiet, this was kind of a quiet 30-point outing from him, because he was able to get to the line 10 of 12, but missing that free throw late, not exactly stepping up and hitting those big shots down the stretch. Like, overall, consistently good and helping to spur that comeback. When they took over a double-digit lead in the third quarter, him and Josh Howard both were really, really strong. But yeah, it didn't feel like this was the dominating Dirk game, the same way that Jason Terry's performance felt in game 1, or certainly not as strong as Dwyane's in game 3 either. So
you mentioned the missed free throws there. Both teams just shot so poorly from the free throw line. I think Dallas made 68%, 69% of their free throws. Miami only made 59% of their free throws. Dirk got to the line 12 times. D Wade got to the line 18 times. So we're not at the point yet where it's such a dramatic difference that you have Dallas Mavericks fans complaining about it. But also just a really weird, sloppy game in general, I thought. I mean, how many times did the rest – I'm getting off topic here, but it's all right. Like, how many 3-second violations were called in this game? A dozen?
A few.
It felt like 20 of them were called. It was a 3-second violation.
Shaq, Dampier, both. Yeah.
It was just a sloppy game. They were called like a couple of carries. I don't think that the game is any less sloppy now. I just don't think the refs call that stuff as much.
Can I tell you something else? Something that's been kind of stuck with me over the first 3 games of the rewatch. There's not as much complaining about free throws and foul calls as there is in today's game.
Agreed.
It's just weird. Like, I don't want to bag on today's game or today's players or anything else like that, but the foul baiting, the appealing to the refs after every possession, either it's just done a lot more slickly or it's just not being done at all. And I think the pace over the game in general is just quicker. Like, they score, you got fouled, you didn't get the call, whatever. You just move on, inbound the ball, and let's go. We don't got time for that stuff.
I agree.
And it's different. It's different.
This is why older players rag on the new players and why they're complaining about it, because you're being babies about all this stuff. Grow up. Just take the foul. Move on. Let's go. Yeah. I'm with you. I like it. We were discussing categories before we started this rewatch series, and one of the categories was the Oscar goes to for the best flop, and we haven't had to use it because I'm not seeing any like egregious flops right now. My player who's ahead of time, my Brian Wilson award is going to James Posey.
Yeah.
6'8", 215-pound swingman. He could play 3 different positions, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, probably. Made 40% of his threes in the finals, 35% from range for his career. He was Miami's best perimeter defender, arguably. Good rebounder. Not much of a ball handler, but just sort of your prototypical 3-and-D wing. And today, you put James Posey in today's game, he's probably making $15 million a year. People want that player everywhere.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. I mean, as just a great utility player to have, a versatile position that you can just put in there. You can play him in small lineups, big lineups. The ability to stretch the floor, certainly, I think is fantastic. To me, my Brian Wilson award goes to Antoine.
I'm good with it. It's a good pick.
Yeah, his ability to bring the ball up. Like, there were moments there where he kind of looks like the biggest player out there.
Yeah.
Like, he's playing alongside Alonzo Mourning, and it's not much of a height difference either. Like, Alonzo listed generously at 6'10", 6'11". I wouldn't go that far. And he just played bigger. He brought the ball up, stretching the floor, looking to shoot from perimeter, and just being able to put the ball down and attack a player too. Like, that kind of versatility. He was a point forward, and that's something that, we had seen Scottie Pippen develop that. We had seen Sean Kemp to a degree. Lamar Odom took it to another level, but Antoine was a really nice fit at being able to combine all these different things. And in today's game, you think about the versatility of a guy like Bam Adebayo offensively. You had that to some degree in Antoine. He was just looking for his shot a lot more than Bam ever has. So that's another story.
He wasn't terribly efficient as a scorer. He did like to get his lone looks, and there's a lot of times where he sort of looks off D Wade, and he's like, "Nah, this is my possession here."
25 feet. I'm good. I'm open.
Which I remember as a Heat fan growing up was really frustrating. I used to know that stuff back. Like, Antoine Walker was the ultimate. Like, the good games you loved them, the bad games you didn't. He was ahead of his time in his way that he was Dion Waiters before Dion Waiters a little bit.
Wow. Dion Waiters working out in Miami, by the way. At the University of Miami. Yes, he is working out. He's looking for an NBA comeback. Sorry.
Hey, maybe you can go to the NFL too. All right, let's get to our finishing categories here. Number 1, where does this game rank in the 3 games that we've watched so far?
Oh, it's got to be number 1 by far, just because it was so close down the stretch. Hit big shots from both teams, missed free throws, etc. Big defensive plays, like a 13-point comeback in the second half of the fourth quarter. Like, I mean, that's what makes a great game. I know Mavs fans would disagree, but I think just from a pure game perspective, regardless of the outcome or the winner, by far.
Easily the most entertaining, right? I mean, the other games were boring compared to this one. Is the first one that felt like a finals game, if that makes sense. The other ones just sort of it felt like both teams were just sort of going. I didn't even think Dallas played that well in the first 2 games. I just thought Miami played really poorly and just couldn't make anything. So I've got this as my number 1, like, watchable game, and then I've got game 1 and then game 2. And I know that you have game 1 and game 2 flip flop, but it doesn't really matter because both of those games sucked. And this game was good. The Mark Cuban angry scale. We used to have it at 1 to 10, David. I'm going to switch it to 1 to 5 just because I don't know that there's 10 different degrees to Mark Cuban's anger. So we're going to go 1 to 5. I've got him in a 3 here.
Whoa. Are you seeing something that I'm not? Or is he flailing behind the bench or something? Because in the few times that he's panned to from the camera, I don't see like much of a reaction. There was like a bit nervousness there. Like, first of all, he's sitting. Yeah,
I was trying to figure it out. So there's 3.5 minutes left. D Wade hits that baseline drive that I was talking about earlier, and they do pan to Mark Cuban sitting behind the Mavericks bench. Confusion is good. I wrote frazzled. I have frazzled in my notes. He looks frazzled. So maybe this is the Mark Cuban confusion scale. Like, it is at the point now where he is asking himself, what is this Dwyane Wade thing that's happening to me right now? It feels like he's starting to realize that Dwyane Wade's going to be a problem.
Yeah. Oh, this is kind of like one of those tests that they give like kids or like in a psychologist's office. Like, what emotion is this? You know, like you look at Mark Cuban and it's like, what is he now? Is he angry? Not yet, but he'll get there. Believe me. Right now, confusion is a good one. Maybe a little nervousness. Absolutely. I could see. You could see him like at one point. I think he's actually even chewing his nails at one point. He's just like looking around, fidgety-eyed, wondering what the hell's going to happen. And that's when Miami was. I remember that shot specifically from when Miami had their double-digit lead. So things only got progressively worse from there for him, I'm sure.
So should we dial it down from a 3 to a 2? Just but like a 2 on the angry scale, but with like a side dish of confusion.
I'm good with 3. I'm good with 3. Like he's getting antsy. You can see that he's starting to get worried about the outcome of the series.
Final category here. Has Dwyane Wade achieved legendary status yet?
Legendary. It's not there yet. It's almost there.
Almost is what I have.
They did something that I'd been talking about before too, was that they made the comparison. It almost seems sacrilegious, right? But they made the comparison from Wade to Michael Jordan in this broadcast. Like, that was something I was not expecting to hear, but that was basically how they were marketing. Again, they mentioned the fact that he's in that commercial where you fall down 7 times and get up 8.
Great commercial.
And he's so aggressive. Yeah, absolutely. But this is starting to begin the legend process of the building of a legend for Dwyane Wade. Was, I think, what this playoff run was for him. He was a really good, exciting player, gets to the line a lot. He gets that jumper. He's a good playmaker, great defender, etc. Legend. He could just as easily have been like, I mean, again, terrible hypothetical what if, but if he does get injured here, Miami doesn't win game 3. Maybe they win another one. Maybe it's a gentleman's sweep here. Who knows what the rest of his career pans out like. Like, could he have just been a one-time wonder, one of the big what-if questions in NBA history? Because I think that's pretty fair. Like, I don't think that he's not good enough yet to be a legend, but he's also not bad enough to just be a player who got hurt and that you never hear from again. So it's somewhere in between.
I'm with you. It's almost, I mean, we obviously know what happens in this series, but if this had just been the one-off, it would have just been one of the great all-time single-game performances, but that's not enough. That's not enough to be a legend. No. And so it's going to take a little bit more, and obviously D Wade is up for the challenge. Game 4 comes out next week. This is one last note here. This was a 2-3-2 series still back then. So we've got 3 straight Heat games in Miami to go to. So game 4 comes out next week. We also have a really exciting interview that we're really excited to share with all of you next week as well. But for now, that's going to do it for us today. This has been game 3 of our 2006 NBA Finals Rewatch here on Locked On Heat. Subscribe on YouTube. Subscribe wherever it is that you get podcasts. And David, looking forward to watching game 4, bud.
Absolutely.